Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Solo Gamers Club. Tonight we're going to continue with episode 2 of our playthrough of Eldritch Horror. So far, our investigators have done quite well. We've managed to solve one of the 3 mysteries that we need to solve to win, and we've kept the Doom track from moving. It's at 13 currently. Now the current mystery that we're attempting to solve is growing hunger. We're going to need to, in addition to defeating the Wendigo monster, we're going to need clues in order to obtain the Eldritch tokens that are on the board. If we can get 2 of those, we're going to solve our second mystery. Currently, we've got Wendy Adams with 3 clues, and Joe Diamond has 1 clue. So what I'm proposing is I'm going to have Wendy Adams rush back to the United States. In the meantime, I'm going to have Joe Diamond start moving towards the San Francisco area, and they're going to do a exchange, and Wendy's going to give those clue tokens to Joe Diamond, and he's going to use those. He's our best fighter, and we're going to attempt to get him to take care of the Wendigo and to pick up those Eldritch tokens that we're going to need. Now, we do have one ongoing rumor in the southern part of the United States, and that's in Space 6, and that's Voodoo Curse. And if a reckoning effect goes off, characters that do not have a Bane condition will gain one. So we have to try to solve that as quickly as we can. We're going to need to spend 2 clues on that Space 6 to get rid of that. So I'm going to try to work towards doing that. Our lead investigator is Joe Diamond, and he's currently in Greenland. He just finished up solving our first mystery up there. And I think we're going to have him move towards the southern part of the U.S. and take care of that ongoing rumor. All right, Joe Diamond is up first. He's going to be our lead investigator. He has a clue. His health is at 6, sanity at 4. He's got the Winchester rifle. He's got the markings of Isis, which is quite useful for him. Gives him +1 to all skills. He also has the Living Link, +1 to all skills. So that's pretty good. And we'll have Joe Diamond start making his way towards that ongoing rumor location. Now we know by deduction that the next Mythos card is going to be another ongoing rumor, or at least a blue card. So we'll have to plan for that. We'll begin with Joe Diamond taking a travel action. He's going to travel from Greenland back to Arkham. That'll be his first action. His second action is going to be a rest action. That will move him back up to 7 health and 5 sanity. That'll complete his actions. We'll move on to Wendy Adams. Now she has 3 clue tokens, so I'm going to need to get those in the hands of Joe Diamond so he can take care of the problems that we've got out on the board. She's currently in Shanghai. Okay, Wendy is going to start out with a travel action. She's going to move from Shanghai to Tokyo. Her second action is going to be a prepare action, and she's going to gain a ship ticket. So we'll give Wendy a ship ticket that'll help her in her travels across the Pacific. Next up is Sister Mary. She's also in Tokyo. And I think she's going to start out with a prepare for travel action. She's going to begin with getting a ship ticket. Her second action is going to be a travel action. I'm going to have her move back towards Bombay, and maybe she can get to the Himalayas with the expedition and the clue. So we're going to have her move to Indonesia. She's going to spend her ship ticket and advance herself to Bombay. Bob Jenkins is in Arkham, and I think he's going to start an acquire assets action. Okay, his influence is a 4, so he'll be getting 4 dice for the test. He's rolled 1 success, so he can pick up an item that has a cost of either 1 or 2. He has that special ability to lower the cost of items by 1 to a minimum of 1. Right, so he's going to choose the museum director. It's an ally. When you gain this card from the deck or the reserve, gain an artifact, and then roll one additional die when resolving will tests during a combat encounter. So we're going to give that to Bob Jenkins. Now he gets a artifact. Let's see what that is. The artifact is revealed to be Pentacle of Planes. It's a magical item. As an action, defeat a monster on your space. You lose sanity equal to its toughness. Reduce the damage and horror of monsters you encounter by 2 to a minimum of 1. That's a great card. We'll give that also to Bob Jenkins. Okay, for Bob's second action, he's going to do a move action, and we're going to move him back to London. There is a clue token there, plus the main function in London is to spawn clues, so that'll be his second action. Now we'll go to the encounter phase, and we'll start with Joe Diamond. Joe Diamond is in Arkham. Now, he's not going to gain much benefit from these incantation spells, I don't think. So I'm wondering if we should maybe just take a generic city encounter there, and I think that's what I'll do. Although Joe has managed to improve his lore by 2, he's at 4 right now, so maybe that might not be too bad. I guess we'll go with the Arkham encounter after all. And the Arkham encounter reads, some ritual had been performed in the Black Cave, but the cultists are long gone. You look around for anything they might have left behind. Test observation. Well, fortunate for us, Joe has an observation of 4. He also gains +1 to all skills for his Markings of Isis spell, and +1 to all skills for Living Link. So he's going to be rolling a total of 6 dice. Okay, here is the roll. And he's got 4 successes. He's got 4 successes. All right, let's read on. If you pass, you find a scrap of parchment and gain 1 incantation spell. All right, let's see what it is. He draws the incantation Dread Curse. When resolving a combat encounter, you may test lore -2. If you pass, gain +8 strength during that encounter, and then flip the card. That is awesome. All right, that's going to complete Joe Diamond's turn. We'll move on to Wendy Adams. She's in Tokyo. All right, Wendy is in Tokyo, and I think she's going to take the Tokyo encounter. And the Tokyo encounter reads, Idogawa Ranpo identifies the culprit. Discard 1 monster of your choice with toughness 2 or less. All right, let's see what we've got here. We have a Chthonian in the heart of Africa and a Shoggoth in the Amazon. Let's check their toughness levels. Well, unfortunately, both of those have a toughness of 4, so we're not going to be able to utilize that. It says you ask him for more help. Test influence -1. Well, Wendy Adams has an influence of 1, so it's not too good. So we'll give it a try. We're looking for a success here with 1 die. Here's the roll. She rolls a 2. That's a failure. It says, if you fail, you despair, lose 1 sanity. All right, that's going to drop her sanity down from 7 down to 6. That'll end her encounter. We'll move on to Sister Mary in Bombay. All right, Sister Mary is in Bombay, and she's going to take a general city encounter. And her encounter reads, a shady figure offers to sell you a weapon, no questions asked. You speak with him to determine his motives. Test influence. Well, she has an influence level of 2. All right, here's her influence roll with 2 dice. And she's failed that. Let's see what the fail condition is. If you fail, the undercover policeman arrests you. Gain a detained condition. All right. All right, she gains the detained condition. It's a restriction. You cannot move or perform actions other than the action on this card. Instead of resolving an encounter, flip this card. There's a local action available. We can test influence, and if you pass, you can discard the card. All right. And finally, we have Bob Jenkins in London. His choices would be to take the London encounter, a general city, or a research encounter. I think he's going to take the research encounter, and we'll draw a research card. The city research encounter reads, you find an account of the wizard Amum Vogue, but it is in a language that you do not immediately recognize. Test lore -1. All right, Bob Jenkins has a lore of 2 for right now. And it looks like that's all he's going to get is 2 dice. And here is his lore -1 test. In fact, he only gets 1 die because his lore is 2 and it's a -1, so 1 dice. He rolls a 4. That is ineffective for the moment. He has no way to re-roll that, so we're going to have to take the fail condition. And that says if you fail, you spend too long searching for a translation and sleep the next day. Become delayed. All right, so Bob Jenkins is delayed. We'll put his figure in a prone position, and all he'll be able to do during his next action phase is to stand up. All right, that completes the encounter phase. We're going to move on to the mythos phase. That's going to be resolved by Joe Diamond, our lead investigator. We'll draw a mythos card, and we know from deduction this is going to be a blue card. All right, the card is revealed to be Shadow Beneath Chicago. We start out with a clue, spawning of clues. All right, we've spawned some clues. One of them is going to be in San Francisco. The other one is going to be in Space 4 up in Canada, so it's close by. That's good. Next, we're going to have a rumor token placed out in Space 5. That is also very close by. So we're going to place a rumor token in Chicago, and that's in Space 5. Then we have to place 4 Eldritch tokens out. So we're going to be placing 4 Eldritch tokens on the card, and now we're going to read the ongoing rumor, Shadow Beneath Chicago. As you search for the rumored living darkness, the impulse to cut into your own flesh grows stronger. Little by little, it wants to reduce you to nothing. As an encounter, an investigator in Space 5 may search for the living darkness that has caused hundreds to take their own lives. You would have to do an observation test. If you pass, you can spend the number of clues equal to the number of investigators to solve the rumor. When there are no Eldritch tokens on this card, each investigator impairs each of his skills twice, then resolve the rumor. During the reckoning phase, we will be discarding an Eldritch token. That's going to be a little tougher because we're going to need 4 clues. Wow. All right, so that is going to complete the mythos phase. We're going to be moving into another action round, and this is going to be the start of stage 2 now of our mythos cards. In stage 2, we're going to experience 4 green cards and 2 yellow cards. So there'll only be 2 reckoning effects during this next 6 cards, which is good for us. And I think before we conclude this round, I'm going to move the lead investigator token to Wendy Adams and allow her to take her first action. So Wendy Adams will be our first lead investigator. Wendy's got 3 clues with her, and I'm planning on transferring those over to Joe Diamond whenever we can. So she's going to start her move action, and she's going to move from Tokyo to space number 2 on the opposite side of the board. So her first move action will be to see space 2. She's going to spend her ship ticket and move into San Francisco. That'll be her first action. Her second action will be a focus action, and we'll give her a focus token. I want to make sure that we have those to avoid the hypothermia condition. Next up is Sister Mary. Sister Mary is going to do a travel action, and she's going to move using this uncharted path into the Himalayas. We'll have to be careful because there are cards that are going to put the Nafke into the Himalayas. So that could be a problem. We don't want to stay there too long. That's her first action. Her second action will be a focus, and we'll give her a focus token. Up next is Bob Jenkins, and he's delayed, so all he can do is stand up. That'll be the full extent of his actions. Joe Diamond is the last to activate. He's going to start with a travel action. We're going to move him into Chicago. And he doesn't have enough clues to go after that ongoing rumor yet. So in this case, he is going to focus, and we'll give him a focus token. All right, we'll move on now to the encounter phase. We'll begin with our lead investigator, Wendy Adams. She is currently in San Francisco. She's going to be doing a token encounter. She'll do a research encounter there in an attempt to get that clue token. All right, her city research encounter reads, a supply truck has gone missing in the snowstorm while carrying food and medicine, and we have to test observation. Well, Wendy has an observation of 4 plus an improvement 5, so she's going to get 5 dice for the test. All right, here is her observation test. And she's failed. She's rolled 5 dice, but she has no successes. Well, she has a focus token and the clues, but I don't want to spend those, so we're going to have to take the fail condition. And that says if you fail, you become lost in the blizzard, lose the sanity, and become delayed. All right, so she will become delayed in San Francisco. Her sanity will drop from 6 down to 5. And that's too bad because we've been actually doing quite well with our dice rolls, especially in episode 1, but so far, not in this episode. Okay, we'll move on now to Sister Mary. She's in the Himalayas. And I actually made a mistake. Sister Mary was not able to move. So she was actually in a detained situation. So the only thing she should have been able to do was to do a local action. So I'm going to have to put her back where she was. So in reality, Sister Mary would have been back in Bombay. She would not have been able to take the focus action that she took. All she could have taken is the local action, test influence, to discard the card, and that's what we're going to have to try to do. So I'm going to do that to correct my mistake. We'll make a influence check. Her influence is 2. So we'll see if she could have avoided that to discard the detained card. She did not. So therefore she would be in Bombay. And it says you cannot move or perform actions other than the action on this card. Instead of resolving an encounter, we have to flip the card. So instead of taking a city encounter, we're going to have to check the backside of that detained condition. And that says cruel and unusual. It reads, your captors are going to subject you to vicious tactics designed to break your will if you do not give them the information they require. Spend a clue or test willpower -1. If you fail, lose 3 sanity and gain a paranoia condition, and then discard the card. Well, Sister Mary does not have any clues, so that'll force her to do the will test. She currently has a will of 4. So here's her 4 dice will test. Now it's will -1, so she's only going to get 3 dice. Okay, 3 dice. She's got a success, thank goodness. She's rolled a 5, and that's great. So we get to discard the card. That'll be the end of her encounter phase. We'll move on to the encounter phase for Bob Jenkins. He's in London, and I think he's going to do a research encounter with that clue token. That city research card reads, you search through the library's occult literature for any hints at the cause of the strange weather. And we're going to test observation. Well, Bob's observation is a 2, and he has 1 improvement there, so he's got an observation of 3. All right, we'll have Bob make his 3 dice observation test. And he's rolled a success, which is great. We'll continue reading. It says, if you pass, you are unable to find anything that can explain the sudden storm, but you do learn much about the occult. Improve lore. Well, that's not what we wanted, but we'll take it. That'll move his lore up to 3. So we've given Bob Jenkins a +1 to lore, moving him up to 3. And now we will move on to Joe Diamond. All right, Joe Diamond is in Chicago. He doesn't have enough clue tokens to take on that rumor that's there. So I think we're just going to have him do a general city encounter. His general city encounter reads, a gravestone that has been defaced with strange symbols. Test lore. All right, well, Joe Diamond has currently a lore value of 4. He's got a +2 improvement there. All right, so Joe Diamond is going to make his 4 dice lore test. Let's see if he can pass this. And he's failed 1, 3, and 2 4s. Well, I can't use the focus token because of the potential of having a yellow card coming up in the Mythos phase. It's a 75% chance of a green card at this point, so I could try it, but I don't think it's worth the risk. The fail condition says if you fail, you begin to see the symbols everywhere, gain a paranoia condition. All right. Okay, so he gains the paranoia condition. That's a madness condition. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die, and a 5 or 6, discard the card. During a reckoning, we have to make a will test, and if we fail, we're going to flip the card. Okay, next up is the Mythos phase. All right, the Mythos phase is going to be resolved by Wendy Adams. She's in San Francisco. She's delayed, but that doesn't prevent her from interacting in the Mythos phase. So we'll draw a card and see what it is. We have a 75% chance of getting a green card, and I hope we do. And it is a green card. It's entitled Beginning of the End. We're going to start with a movement on the Omen track. Omen track will advance to the blue star pattern. We'll examine the board and see what type of gates we have out here. The only gate we have is the red gate in the Amazon. So there'll be no movement to the Doom track. Returning back to the card, we're going to have a monster surge. On each space containing a gate that corresponds to the current omen. And that's where that would occur. If no gates correspond to the omen, spawn a gate. So we'll be spawning a gate. Our next gate is going to be in Sydney, Australia, and that is a red gate. All right, the gate spawns in Sydney and a zombie appears. The red cap on top of that token indicates that it has some type of reckoning effect. So we'll see what that looks like. All right, there is the zombie's effects, and during the reckoning effects, discard the monster and spawn zombie horde, epic monster on this space. All right. Next, we have to spawn clues, and we'll get 2 clues out on the board. Clues are revealed to be in space 10, and that's going to be in Dakar, French West Africa, and another clue will be in sea space 8 in the Caribbean. Now we have to read our event, Beginning of the End. You are not just at war with otherworldly creatures. You must also face your own fear and despair. Every sign and portent warns of inescapable death. Each defeat seems as inevitable certainty. All right, this is an ongoing effect. It says, when there are no Eldritch tokens on all Rumor Mythos cards in play, or there are no Rumor Mythos cards in play, each investigator loses 2 sanity. Then discard this card. And during the reckoning effects, it says discard 1 Eldritch token from a Rumor Mythos card in play. So that's definitely going to be affecting the Shadow Beneath Chicago Rumors event. We're going to have to solve that very quickly. All right, so that is going to bring the Mythos phase to a close, and we've got a lot of work to do, no doubt about that. We'll begin with another action round, and we'll start with our lead investigator, Wendy Adams. She has no choice other than to just stand up. She was delayed. Next up is Sister Mary. All right, the next Mythos card that comes out, there's going to be a 40% chance of it being a yellow card. There's 5 cards left in that stage, and 2 of them will be yellow cards. So we'll begin now with Sister Mary, and I think she's going to start with a focus action. Give her a focus token. Her next action will be a travel action. We'll have her move to the Himalayas through that uncharted path. That'll be her 2 actions. All right, Bob Jenkins is up next. He's in London. He's at full health. So I think what he will do, I'm going to see if there's a way for us to transfer any items or trinkets to other players that might need them. I think he will. His first action is going to be to use his active action. You may trade any number of item or trinket possessions with another investigator in any space. He's going to give this Pentacle of Planes magical item, he's going to give that to Joe Diamond. For his second action, he is going to focus, and he'll gain a focus token. All right, Joe Diamond is up next. He's in Chicago. He is going to do a travel action to San Francisco, and his second action is going to be a trade action with Wendy Adams. Wendy is going to give him her 3 clue tokens. That'll move Joe Diamond up to 4 clues. And I think in exchange, he's going to give her the spell Poison Mist. We'll give that to Wendy. All right, that's his 2 actions. Wendy Adams is up next, and she's going to take her encounter phase. She's in San Francisco. She's going to take a San Francisco encounter. We're going to let Joe Diamond go after that clue token, because he's the one that's going to be needing them to solve these ongoing rumors and things. So she's going to start out with a San Francisco encounter. The San Francisco encounter reads, you excavate a large shell mound. Test lore. Okay. Wendy has a lore of 3. All right, here is her lore test. She has a lore of 3. And she's got no successes. She has the ability to re-roll with a focus token. I don't want to use that. So it says if you fail, you fear ancient spirits have been angered. Gain a cursed condition. Well, she has a special ability, and that is her passive ability. It says once per round, if you would gain a non-deal condition or an impairment token, you may choose not to gain that condition or impairment instead. And that's what she's going to do. She would be gaining a curse condition, and the curse condition is a non-deal condition. So she's going to choose not to take it. So that special ability actually worked out quite well for us. And we'll move on now to Sister Mary. Sister Mary is in the Himalayas, and I think she's going to try the expedition token, and we'll see if she can pass that. The expedition reads, the Order of the Death's Head has arranged for a mass sacrifice of monks to call forth the Ogress of Rasa. You attack the Order's soldiers to free their prisoners. Test strength. Well, her strength is only a 2, and I don't have any cards that are going to help us. She has holy water, but that is only going to help during a combat encounter. This is not. It is a strength test. So Sister Mary will make her strength test. We'll see what happens. She's passed it. She's got a 6. That is great. Thank goodness. Let's read on. The Order abandons the ritual, and you rescue the monks. One of them gratefully gives you a scroll that you attempt to interpret. Test lore -1. Well, once again, Sister Mary has a lore of 2. And that's the only thing that is going to help her, I believe. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to have a 2 dice roll here. See if she can pass this. And she's failed. It says if you fail, the scroll's strange pottery or poetry, bleeds into reality, gain a hallucinations condition. Oh boy. So she's going to gain the hallucinations condition. It's a madness. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die, and a 5 or 6, discard the card. During a reckoning, she's going to have to test willpower, and if she fails, she'll have to flip the card. Boy, we haven't had much success in this episode 2, that is for certain. And the expedition is going to move to Antarctica. All right, that is going to bring Sister Mary's encounter phase to a close. We'll go on to Bob Jenkins. All right, Bob is in London, and I guess he's going to try for that clue token, and we'll have him do a research action. And his research city action is as follows. The city is blanketed in snow, and you search for any sign of your contact. We're going to be testing observation -1. Bob Jenkins has an observation of 2, and he has a +1 improvement, so he's at 3, so we'd be rolling 2 dice at this point. Well, he has no other improvements I can make to that, so he'll be rolling a total of 2 dice for the test. Here we go. And he's failed. He's got a 4 and a 2. We'll read the fail condition, and it says, if you fail, you stay out of the cold for too long, lose a health, and gain a hypothermia condition. Oh my goodness. I can use the focus token that he has to attempt a reroll. We got a 40% chance of one of those coming out next turn. Either way, he would gain a hypothermia, so I might as well try it. We're going to spend his focus token and try a reroll and see if we can pass this thing. Here's the roll. And he did it. He's got a 5, and we're successful. We're going to read the pass condition. If you pass, you find him in a half-buried pub, and he shares what he's learned. Gain this clue and 1 additional clue. Outstanding. So Bob Jenkins will gain the clue and 1 additional from the bag. I'm glad I used that focus token. All right, so Bob's got 2 clue tokens, and I think I'm going to have him rush back to North America and assist Joe Diamond in his efforts with these rumor cards. Next up is Joe Diamond. He's in San Francisco. All right, Joe Diamond is going to do a token encounter, and he's going to go after that clue token in San Francisco. And his city research encounter reads, a robed figure is attacking a woman in the park, and you spring to the rescue. A cultist monster ambushes you. If you defeat it, you interrogate him until the police arrive. Gain the clue. All right. If you do not defeat it, you cannot stop the woman from being sacrificed to the spirit of the Wendigo. Lose 2 sanity. All right, so he's going to be going up against, and he's being ambushed by a cultist. The cultist has no horror level and no will test. It does have a strength test with 2 damage. All right. All right, Joe Diamond has a strength of 2. He is also going to use his Winchester rifle, which is going to give him +4. He has the markings of Isis, giving him +1 to all skills. That's his 5th. And he has the living link condition, giving him another +1 to all skills. In addition, he has a 32 Colt pocket. We can only use 1 card. You can use as many cards as you want, but only one of those can modify the combat during an encounter. The 32 Colt pocket says roll 1 additional die when resolving a strength test during combat, and you can re-roll 1 die when resolving a strength test during combat. So you can use all the weapons you want, but you can only take a benefit that adds to your strength or whatever it is from 1 item. In this case, it's add an additional die, so you can have as many of those as you want. So we'll get a count for him. And you know what? I think even better yet, Joe Diamond is going to use his Pentacle of Planes. Reduce the damage and horror of monsters you encounter by 2 to a minimum of 1. That's an ongoing ability of the Pentacle of Planes. So that would prevent us from losing any damage to the cultist, because his damage is 2. So it would be down to a 1 at least. So Joe Diamond will be rolling 9 dice for this test. All right, here is the combat against the cultist. We're going to be rolling 9 dice. I have 1 reroll because of my 32 Colt pocket. All right, here's 9 dice. Now, if I don't get a success with 9 dice, you might see the first ever table flip on the Solo Gamers Club. Here's the roll. And I've got 2 successes. What do you know? I've got a 5 and a 6. So we have caused 2 points of damage to the cultist. That's enough to defeat him. We won't take any damage. We're using our Pentacle of Planes, which is reducing his damage to a minimum of 1. Even if we didn't have that, we'd still have 0 damage. So we'll continue reading here. We'll see what the effect is of a success. And that says, if you defeat it, you interrogate him until the police arrive, gain the clue. Okay, that is great. All right, so Joe Diamond now has 5 clues. That is awesome. That is going to complete our encounter phase. We'll move on to the Mythos phase. That's going to be resolved by Wendy Adams. And in this case, we've drawn a yellow card, and that is everything is under control. We're going to begin with a movement on the Omen track. All right, the Omen track is going to move clockwise to the green comet. We have no green gates on the board, so no movement to the Doom track. It's amazing. Next is going to be our Reckoning phase, and that will not be good for us. A lot of things are going to be happening. All right, the first step in the Reckoning phase resolution will be monsters. And we currently have 2 monsters on the board with Reckoning effects. First one is a Shoggoth in the Amazon. And that says this monster recovers all health. So that's not too bad. It didn't have any damage, so no problem there. The next one is a zombie. That's not going to be good. That says discard this monster and spawn the zombie horde epic monster in this space. Okay. All right, the zombie horde epic monster appears. That has a Reckoning effect. And on the back, it's going to have a toughness of 5. And during Reckoning effects, it says, roll a die. On a 1 or 2, advance the doom by 1. All right, so that will kick in the next time we have a Reckoning effect. I'm going to have to try to get rid of that. Next is the Ancient Ones effect, and we know what Ithaqua's abilities are, and that is each investigator will gain a hypothermia condition unless he spends a focus. Well, all of the characters have focus tokens except for Bob Jenkins. He could not obtain one. So he is going to gain a hypothermia condition. So Jenkins will gain the hypothermia condition. It's an exposure. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover health. Roll 1 die on a 4, 5, or 6, discard the card. If you would gain another hypothermia condition, flip the card instead. So that's going to Bob Jenkins. All right. Next, the Mythos cards that are active are going to kick off their effects. And we've got quite a few of those. The first one is, we can do these in any order we choose. So I think the first one will be the beginning of the end. Discard an Eldritch token from a Rumor Mythos card in play. So we'll discard 1 from the Shadow Beneath Chicago. Next, the Shadow Beneath Chicago, discard an Eldritch token from this card, down to 2. Then the Voodoo Curse will kick in. An investigator that does not have a Bane condition gains a Bane condition. All right. All right, Wendy Adams does not have a Bane condition, so she's going to gain one. And Wendy Adams gains the Bane Cursed, but she has a passive ability once per round. If you would gain a non-deal condition or an impairment, you may choose to not gain that condition or impairment instead, and that's what she's going to do. So the cursed is no more. Sister Mary already has a bane condition, and that's this blight condition, so she doesn't need to take one. Bob Jenkins does not have a bane, so he will gain one. And he gains the bane, haunted. If you would gain a blessed condition, improve willpower. You may discard this card instead. During reckonings, he's going to roll a die, and a 1, 2, or 3, he will flip the card. All right. And finally, we have Joe Diamond. Now, Joe Diamond does not have any banes, but he does have this living link card. And it says here, if you would gain a bane condition, you may discard this card instead. So I think what we'll do is we'll take a look at what the bane is, and then we'll decide if we want to use the living link or not. And that card is revealed to be Blight. When you gain this card, discard one ally asset. He does not have any allies. During reckoning phases, the allies that you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause. Flip the card. So that is our choice. We could get rid of it by discarding that boon. It isn't that deadly to us. We're not going to lose any allies, but that reckoning effect would kick in. I think we'll accept the Blight, and I'll keep that living link card. I like that +1 to skills. All right, so we'll do that. That completes that portion. That completes the Mythos cards that are active. And now we will move on now to possessions and conditions, starting with Wendy Adams. Wendy does not have any reckoning effects with any items or possessions. Sister Mary has several of them: Blight, Shroud of Shadow, and the hallucinations. I think Sister Mary will begin by resolving this hallucinations. She's going to have to do a test on willpower. If she passes it, she doesn't have to flip the card. Otherwise, we'll have to see what's on the back of that. All right, Sister Mary has a willpower of 4, so we'll see if she can pass this. She's got a success. She has rolled a 5, so that will 86 that hallucination for the time being. Next is the Shroud of Shadow. We have to test lore -1 and flip the card. Her lore, unfortunately, is a 2. So she'll only be getting 1 dice for the test. Here's the roll. She has no successes, so we'll flip the card. And with no successes, it says the darkness seeps into your mind. Gain a madness condition unless you discard the card. Well, we're going to discard it. It's not that important to us. Finally, she has a blight condition. It says the allies that you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause. Flip the card. And the card reads, Obsessive Greed. Whenever your valuables go missing, it is clear who took them. Resolve one effect of your choice. We can discard an item possession and then flip the card, or discard all possessions and impair influence and will, and then discard the card. Well, we'd have to give up our holy water card that we have. That would be the only item there, and that would allow us to flip the card back. Otherwise, we have to impair influence and will. I don't want to do that. So, that is a tough decision. Well, she does have this passive ability. You and other investigators on your space add 1 to the result of each die rolled as a part of a bane or boon condition effect. But even if she did that, the 3 would have become a 4. So it still wouldn't have helped her. So, I hate taking detriments to the abilities. That's not good. So, yeah, those impairments, you live with those the rest of the game. I don't know how much she'd be using influence, though. But maybe we'll do it. We'll take the impairments on influence and will, and then we can get rid of the card. That's the best thing. So we'll give her an impairment to influence and an impairment to willpower. And that card's gone at least. All right. All right, next up is Bob Jenkins, and he has one card he has to deal with, and that's that haunted condition. And that says roll a die in a 1 or 2, flip the card. Okay, here is the roll. He rolled a 3, so he doesn't have to deal with that at this point. We'll move on to Joe Diamond. All right, Joe Diamond has several cards to deal with: Blight, Markings of Isis, Living Link, and the Madness. We'll start with the Living Link. Your destiny awaits you, flip the card. All right. The remains in 118. Necromancers grew careless and resurrected a powerful wizard by mistake. This ancient, unidentified wizard has chosen you to be the vessel of its righteous wrath. Gain a spell and improve lore. Well, he can't improve his lore any higher than he has, but he can gain a spell. And he gains the spell Flesh Ward. It's an incantation once per round. When an investigator would lose health, you may test lore. If you pass, prevent the investigator from losing up to 2 health, and then flip the card. It's a good card. All right, so we've completed this one. Next, I guess we'll do the paranoia condition, and that is test willpower. If you fail, flip the card. His willpower is currently 2. He gains +1 to all skills for his boon, so that's good. And he gains +1 to all skills from the Markings of Isis. So he'll actually be rolling a total of 4 dice for this test. All right, here we go. He's got the successes. He's got 2 of them, so we've passed the paranoia problem. Moving on to Markings of Isis. We have to test lore -1 and flip the card. His lore is at 4, +1 for the Markings of Isis, and +1 for the Living Link. So we'll be rolling a total of 6 dice. And we'll see what happens with that. He has 1 success. And we'll flip the card. 1 success says the markings burn your flesh and tear at your mind. Lose a health and a sanity unless you discard the card. I think we'll do it. I'll lose a health and sanity in order to keep the card. That's a useful card for us. Finally, we have to resolve this blight. And that says the allies you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause, flip the card. Okay, fiendish gaze. For an instant, you see evil in your friend's eyes. Resolve 1 effect of your choice. Gain a madness condition and flip the card, or lose 3 sanity and impair observation and will to discard the card. Boy. Well, we don't want to lose 3 sanity. That's going to be too expensive. We only got 4 there. So I guess we're going to have to take the madness condition and then flip the card back. So the card will return to blight, and then we will draw a madness. And he draws the madness, hunger. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover sanity. Roll a die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard the card. All right. During reckoning effects in the future, he'll have to test his will. And if he fails, he has to flip the card. That was a pretty bad round. All right, that is going to take care of the reckoning effects. We'll move on back to the card, and I think we're going to be spawning a gate. And yes, the next action on the card is to spawn a gate. This time the gate appears at the pyramids, and that is a blue star pattern. So a gate appears at the pyramids, and one of the worst creatures we could get is the D-hole, and that's what's happened. He has a reckoning effect. He's got 5 toughness. During reckoning effects, we're going to move the monster 1 space toward the nearest investigator. Then each investigator in the space or an adjacent space loses a health and a sanity. So that is not good, and that is a very tough monster to deal with. All right, so we'll put that there. That's as bad as it gets. Now we're going to return to the Mythos card and read the event. Everything is under control. It was so much worse than you thought. The ancient creature had not just established a presence here. It had infected every part of the city, down to the roots. Spawn a monster in each space containing a gate that corresponds to the current omen. Well, the current omen is green. There are no green gates on the board. So that one was not too bad for us. That will end the Mythos phase. The only decision left now is to determine if we want to move the first player marker. And I think we will do that. Joe Diamond is going to go back to being the first player, and he's going to attempt to get rid of, hopefully, some of these ongoing rumor cards. So we're going to begin another action round. This time our first lead investigator is going to be Joe Diamond. Now he has several conditions here that I think would be warranted for him to take a rest action. So that's what we'll do. We'll start out with a rest action. So he's going to take a rest action. Now he's got some modifiers here to things. He's got this hunger. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover sanity, but he'll get a die roll to get rid of the card. Same thing for paranoia. When you perform a rest action, he can roll a die, and on a 5 or 6, he can discard the card. So he is able to heal strength at least, or I should say his health. So he can move up from 6 back up to 7 health. And we'll do that. We'll move him back up to 7. Now he'll make the rolls for hunger and paranoia. All right, the first one he's going to roll for is for hunger. Let me get this in the frame. All right, we need a 4 through 6 to discard the card. And of course, he rolled a 2. Well, we'll try the paranoia. And we need a 5 or 6 on that to get rid of that card. And he's done it. He's got a 5. So we'll get rid of the paranoia card. That's good. All right, for his second action, he's going to do a travel action. And I think it's tough either way. I think our best bet is we don't want it. The shadow beneath Chicago is when there's no Eldritch tokens on this card, each investigator impairs each of his skills twice. That would be just beyond belief if we allow that to happen. So I think he is going to travel to Chicago, and we'll try to take care of that ongoing rumor there. We'll do that. That's his second action. Next up is Wendy Adams. She's in San Francisco. All right, Wendy is going to start out with a focus action. We'll give her a focus token. Her second action is going to be a travel action, I believe. And she'll travel to Chicago with Joe Diamond. That's what she'll do. All right, next up is Sister Mary. She's in the Himalayas, and if this D hole ends up activating, it's going to move to the nearest investigator, which would be towards Rome, and that would get it within, it would be moving towards Bob Jenkins, so she won't have to worry about that thing for the time being. She's going to, I think, she's going to start with a rest action, and maybe we can get rid of her hallucinations condition. All right, she has rested. She was able to get a health back. She's up to full power, 5 and 7 sanity. During a rest action, she can roll a die, and a 5 or 6, she can get rid of the hallucinations. Let's try that. Okay, here's the roll. She's got a 6. That is great. We'll get rid of the hallucination. Outstanding. Her second action is going to be a focus action. She'll gain a focus token. We'll move on to Bob Jenkins. All right, Bob is in London, and that D hole is going to be coming his way. That'll be the closest investigator, so he needs to keep a 2-space buffer from that thing unless he wants to have problems. So I think what he'll do is he's going to start out with a rest action. He can't recover any sanity because he has this hunger condition. So what he'll do is make a roll during his rest action and attempt to get rid of it. He needs a 4, 5, or 6. So let's see if he can get rid of this thing once and for all. Here's the roll. He's rolled a 5, so he's gotten rid of the hunger condition. That's great. He also has a hypothermia condition. And it says when you perform a rest, you cannot recover health. Roll a die on a 4, 5, or 6. He can discard the card. Let's see if he can get rid of the hypothermia. And he rolled a 1. Okay, so he's going to keep on the hypothermia. That was his first action. His second action will be a focus, and we'll give him a focus token. Now he has 2 clue tokens, so we're going to eventually have to try to get those towards North America to get these ongoing rumor cards solved. All right, we're going to move to the encounter phase, and we're going to start with Joe Diamond. And he is going to attempt to take care of this shadow beneath Chicago. It says, as an encounter, an investigator on Space 5 may search for the living darkness that has caused hundreds to take their own lives. We have to test observation. Joe Diamond has an observation of 4. He also gains +1 for his living link, gain 1 to all skills, and +1 for his glamour spell, Markings of Isis, gain 1 to all skills. So he'll have a total of 6 dice to roll. And here is his roll. He's done it. He's got 3 successes. And that card says, if he passes, he can spend clues equal to the number of investigators to solve the rumor. He's going to do that. He's going to spend 4 massive 4 clues, and we're going to be able to get rid of the shadow beneath Chicago. It's our first step. All right, that's going to bring Joe Diamond's encounter phase to a close. We'll go on to Wendy Adams. She's in the same space. Now, Wendy does not have any clue tokens, so she won't be able to go after that voodoo curse ongoing rumor. So I guess she's going to have to take a generic city encounter. And her generic city encounter reads, a local festival gives you a chance to speak with the city's denizens. Test influence. All right. She has an influence of only 1. All right, here is her influence roll. She's failed. And it says if you fail, they see you as dangerous, gain a detained condition. Oh boy. So she's going to gain the detained condition. You cannot move or perform actions other than the action on the card. Instead of resolving an encounter, flip the card. And the only one there is a local action, which is influence, which is not her strong suit. Now with local actions, any investigator on the space can take that local action to help her out. That finishes her encounter. We'll move on to Sister Mary in the Himalayas. Sister Mary is going to take a token encounter, and she's going to do a research action. This research action is taking part in the wilderness, so will be the wilderness section. You must reach the shelter of the clifftop cave before being caught in an oncoming blizzard. Test strength -1. Well, unfortunately, her strength is only a 1. I'm sorry, 2. So she'll be rolling 1 die for the test. All right, here is the roll. She's passed it, amazingly. She has passed it. All right, let's see what it says. If you pass, you find cave paintings inside that tell the history of Hyperborea. Gain the clue. Excellent. So she'll gain that clue. That is her first clue, and that is going to complete her encounter. And finally, we have Bob Jenkins, and he is going to do a London encounter. And his London encounter reads, Ronald True knows dark secrets, but Ronald True framed him for murder. Spawn 1 clue. All right, let's spawn a clue. All right, the clue is revealed to be in Buenos Aires. We'll continue reading, and it says, you ask True to confess. Test influence. All right, well, Bob Jenkins has an influence of 4. So he'll be making a roll with 4 dice for the test. And he's passed it. He's got a 5. If you pass, True asks a favor in return. Gain 1 task unique asset. All right. And he gains the Task Unique Asset Courier run. When you gain this card from the deck, place one random clue that corresponds to a city space face up on the card. After resolving a location encounter in that space, you can flip the card. All right, let's get a random city location. Random city is space 15, and that's Cape Town, South Africa. So if we can travel there and resolve that location encounter, we can flip the card. We'll give that to him. All right, so we have completed our encounters, and we're going to move on to the Mythos phase, which will be resolved by Joe Diamond. All right, we're going to draw a Mythos card, and we'll see what we get. He draws the Mythos card, Forgotten Knowledge. We're going to begin with an Omen track movement. That'll move it to a blue star pattern. We currently have one gate on the board at the pyramids that is in blue. So that is going to decrease the Doom track by 1. So the Doom moves down for the first time in the game, and that's going to move down to 12 now. Next is going to be a monster surge, and we're going to be surging 2 monsters at all of the blue gates, and that will happen at the pyramids. So the monster surge ended up producing a Migo and a Gug. The Migo has a reckoning effect that says discard the nearest clue and move this monster to that space. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, gain an artifact. Well, that's kind of interesting. And then we have the Gug, which does not have a reckoning effect, but it has a toughness of 4 and some pretty nasty damage. If you defeat this monster during combat, you may not resolve an additional encounter, so that uses up all of your time basically. All right, so that finishes that. Next, we're going to spawn 2 clues. Clues are revealed to be in Sea Space 12, that's in the South Atlantic, and Sea Space 3, which is in the South Pacific. And finally, we're going to see what the event is. Forgotten Knowledge. It was so important, and now you cannot remember what it was. All you knew for sure is that it was a matter of life and death, and you had to take action immediately. This is an ongoing effect, like we need any more. When this card enters play, the investigator with the most clues gains the amnesia condition. Then he discards all of his clues, placing them on this card. When the investigator discards his amnesia condition, he gains the clues on this card and discards the card. Well, the investigator with the most clues is Bob Jenkins. So Bob Jenkins is going to have to place the 2 clues on that card, and he's going to gain an amnesia condition. Wow. So Bob Jenkins gains the amnesia condition. It's a madness. When you perform a rest action, you can roll a die, and a 5 or 6, you can discard the card. And during reckoning effects, he's going to have to test willpower or flip the card. All right. So that is going to complete our Mythos phase, and we're going to move on to a new action round. And so I think we're going to end the video here. This one's getting quite long. And this was not a good episode for our investigators. We've taken a lot of conditions, a lot of banes. We still have only one of our mysteries solved, and we're trying to deal with all of these ongoing rumors, and that's making our life very tough. These ongoing rumors are really destructive to us. We have to get rid of this voodoo curse because we're going to continue to take bane conditions if we don't have any. And this is using up a lot of the clue tokens that we had, unfortunately. So I think what we have to do is Bob Jenkins is going to have to try to get rid of that amnesia condition. He can get his clues back, and in the meantime I'm going to have him try to move to North America, and maybe if he can get those clues back, I'll have some of the characters around there try to gain the clues in their areas, and then maybe we can eventually get rid of that growing hunger card. We're going to have to deal with these Eldritch tokens mercifully, they are nearby at least. We have to get 2 Eldritch tokens to solve that growing hunger, and in turn that's going to mandate that we have 4 clues, 2 for each of them, in addition to having to battle a Wendigo. I just noticed in post-production that this beginning of the end card, ongoing card, says that when there are no Eldritch tokens on all Rumor Mythos cards in play, or there are no Rumor Mythos cards in play, each investigator loses 2 sanity and then discard this card. So this card actually is discarded because there are no cards with Eldritch tokens on them anymore. We got rid of that Rumor token that was in Chicago. So each investigator will lose 2 sanity, and then we can discard the card. So I look forward to seeing you again for episode 3 in our playthrough of Eldritch Horror. Things were going very well in episode 1 and not so much in episode 2. Although we have managed to keep the Doom track, we've only lost 1 point of the Doom track. We're at 12, so that's a good thing. So I look forward to seeing you again next time on the channel, and I hope you'll join me for episode 3 of Eldritch Horror. In the meantime, this is Keith signing off and wishing everyone a pleasant evening. Good night.